How do economic development executives contend with community resistance to change? Isaac Lee with the Steuben County Economic Development Corporation offers his strategy on the Midwest Flourish. Greetings, I'm Rick Farrant, and I'm your host for today's The Midwest Flourish. We have with us today Isaac Lee, who's the Executive Director of the Steuben County Economic Development Corporation. Welcome, Isaac.
Welcome, Rick.
Hey, listen, I have a really quick question because I've heard
Here we go.
Here we go. I've heard the name of the county presented a number of ways. I've always said Steuben, but I hear other people say Steuben. What is the correct way to pronounce that?
Depends on if you're from there. I always say Steuben,
Okay.
which gives it a longer feel. I've never been walked out. I've never been yelled at for saying Steuben, to give it a little bit slower of a pitch. But some will just, for sake of conversation, Steuben, and it's really fast.
So nobody gets mad at anybody if they
Not much anymore, no.
That they used
But
to.
they can tell you that
But they used to. Okay.
whether you're from there or
they
not.
tell whether you're from there or not. I get it. Okay.
And that matters.
Okay. So I want you to give us just a brief idea of what you do as the executive director of the Economic Development Corporation without like spending the whole program doing that.
You could.
You're a LEDO, that's what we refer to them at, and there's one in each county in Northeast Indiana.
Yep. So local economic development organizations, that's what LEDO stands for, or sometimes it's LEDO with, they swap the O with director, which is not LEDO anymore, it's LEAD. But anyway, LEDO, every county, for the most part in the U.S., has an individual that does what we do. What is it that we do? Depending on the audience, I will joke with folks about if they remember the old SimCities PC game, to where you're laying out your communities, you're building infrastructure, you're allocating what should be residential, what should be industrial. You get a mayor score and you get a smiley face, and hopefully your taxes are positive. That's kind of what we do. But we have very, very, very minimal authority. In the younger generations, when I talk to them about it, I'm like, well, let's ask the question: how do you think a business, a corporation, in a community, of any community, grows? How do you think they are encouraged to stay there? How do you think a business is attracted to a certain location? Some of it happens organically, but there's typically a team of individuals in the background that are doing work to kind of lay the skids or the groundwork or the foundation to make it a positive pro-business decision for a company or corporation to locate or expand in a community.
So the terms that I've never heard that explanation. That's fascinating.
Which part? The SimCity?
Yeah, the SimCity was very fascinating.
I still have that game on my PC, by the way.
The terms that get thrown around though a lot is attracting and retaining talent, and that would be correct, right? I mean, you're trying to bring business into a county, and you're trying to retain the business that you have.
So typically, from a political correct standpoint, most people will say attraction and retention because A comes before R. In a rural community, it's actually the opposite. Retention of your local business, expansion of your local business far exceeds the activities in terms of what we do on a daily basis than attraction of new business. It's hard to turn a blind eye to an industry that's in your backyard, that's investing all this money, paying payroll to people that live in the community, to say that they're less important than somebody who's coming to your backyard looking at potentially generating 20 jobs or 100 jobs that's not even there yet.
Yeah.
And some businesses will take offense to that. So that's probably, Rick, the biggest difference between rural economic development and what I would say would be maybe metro or even regional or even state. State's really big on attraction of new businesses. And I can understand why. But in a rural community, it's like, first, protect your own. Yeah. Take care of what you have.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that are paying for the services today.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. I want to take a look at some of the challenges that you face in Steuben County. Got to make sure I say that right.
Steuben. Yes.
Steuben.
There you go.
In Steuben County. And one of them is, it looks like, I could be outdated, I did some research on this, it looks like the population in Steuben County is static at best, and that there are projections that it may decline. Now, That's not an unusual occurrence for a lot of the rural counties. But what kind of impact does that have on the work that you do? And I kind of, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking, oh my goodness, like if we're really going to have these declining populations, which of course means you don't have as much to draw from for a workforce, um, like is there any hope for? I'm probably being a little dramatic, but really, is there any hope for rural counties that they can, beef up the population?
So, yes, there is. But I'm going to go back to kind of the first part of the question. The challenges that many rural communities face is a declining population or an aging population. For a long time, Steuben County has had a higher death rate than a birth rate. That's not new news. Um, when we did, we've done population projections over the last 9 years that I've been there, and most recently in 2023 when we did our strategic plan, I knew the biggest thing that would come out of that was something I already knew, and that sounds odd to do a strategic plan about something you already know. And what we found out, what we learned, and what we solidified was the fact that our population was going to decline by a seventh. I have 35,000 people in Steuben County. A seventh is 4,500 people. Think about that. By the year 2050, let's say that we invite a bunch of young families in to have a bunch of kids. I still have to wait 18 years, right?
Mhm.
Roughly. So you peel that back, you're at 2032. What year is it today? 2025?
2025.
We don't have a lot of time to figure out how to change that. So in 2023, we did a strategic plan knowing that our population decline was, if we did nothing, was projected to trend down to, again, about 30,000 people. That does not sustain us from a taxation standpoint. It does not support our school systems. We have 4 fantastic school systems within Steuben County. One, if not 2 of those would close if they were only solely dependent on Steuben County youth. It would be a downward spiral that many economic development practitioners like myself would not want to have. Think about a current tax base that is eroding, but your services, your costs are still the same. The only way to fix that math problem is to increase taxes, and nobody wants that. So a challenge for a rural community is to understand who you are, but then define the direction that you want to go. And what we said in our strategic plan in 2023 is we're not willing to accept a declining population. We're not even really willing to accept a net zero, meaning we just replace what we lose in death rates, natural attrition. We want to be a positive. We want to grow as a community. In 2019, we did a housing strategy study to talk about some of the barriers that would be there if population wanted to come to Steuben County. It wasn't just about the employment. It was about where they were going to live. Interestingly enough, we did that same study again in 2024 as a benchmark, and we realized that our youth and our young, non-traditional single individuals were 6.1% higher than in 2019, meaning that was the only population sector that was growing.
Okay, but you talked a little bit before about bringing in young families and kind of growing up, but now you're saying that some of your growth has been with young folks. Where are they coming from?
Again, so it's kind of there's no silver bullet in this population conversation. You have to do a lot of different things. Generations, my age, your age, definitely.
You're dating me now, Isaac.
But it's the same. It's honestly the same. The generations my age and before me would pick a location based on a job.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I had a grandfather who worked at GM for 30 years. Picked the location because of the job. Generations after me, even younger parts of my generation, are picking locations based on where they want to live and then finding their job. It's a totally different conversation with folks. So yes, you do have to have a quality of life, a quality of place aspect, but you now have to look at amenities. You have to look at all the things that people have access to. We claim to have 101 lakes in Steuben County. Not all of them can you get access to unless you own a cottage. And quite honestly, getting out of college and getting your first job, it's likely you're not going to get a parcel on the lake.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that because well, 3 things. One is housing. I want to come back to housing and where you are with the housing. The other that's been talked about over the years is broadband access. I did look, I can't remember whether it was a utility map or whatever, but I looked somewhere and it looked like in your county, especially around some of the more populated lakes, broadband access was pretty good. But once you spread out from
Except for
there,
Turkey Lake.
yeah,
Yeah.
when you spread out from there, it became a broadband desert for the most part. Um, so my thinking is, we'll talk about those two things, housing and broadband. But on the broadband issue, because you offer some interesting recreational amenities in your county, one would think that it might be a good place for people to do work remotely. But it's going to be hard for them to do remotely if they don't have that broadband access.
Yeah, so we were fortunate in the early or late 1990s, early 2000s. Our community forged ahead with creating a single fiber line between the what they call the MOB building, and which was the city of Angola, and Cameron Hospital, and their police department, and it was the first strand of fiber that was laid. Um, Expanding from that to roughly about 2018, there was over 183 miles of dark fiber laid throughout the county ever before we as a state started talking about BEAD programs or broadband being a priority. So this had already been happening. Most of our communities were connected up. We had about 200 business clients that had access to pretty good bandwidth. Today, that would be pretty typical in any household. It's moved so fast. We are a population that consumes information. You talk about streaming services, you talk about music, you talk about just what we consume from news outlets. All takes bandwidth. Today's bandwidth is ridiculous. I mean, the size of the computers in the 1960s are now fitting on your wrist and your watch. That's the reality. So we consume so much more information. What we've tried to do in Steuben County is put broadband emphasis and fiber to the home. And in fact, in 2024, we helped to work with the Steuben County Commissioners to create a tax-exempt environment for any broadband company wanting to do exactly that. Because we felt remote access, remote opportunities, even lakes. Again, the clientele that live around the lakes are more than likely individuals who are entering retirement age, but probably aren't done yet. They're still innovators. They've created corporations. They've worked really hard in their life, and they just can't stop. But they just want to do it at the lake, or they want to do it in a different environment. So we see entrepreneurism in that space, in that age bracket, as something as a positive for us.
Yeah.
And broadband's a key to that.
Where are you at on housing? And maybe I should put a qualification on that, affordable housing.
Affordable housing is difficult. When you have inflation where it's at, you have the cost of materials depending on if they need to be imported from other places or not, doing what they are. A single dwelling home in any community is going to be difficult to build unless you have the numbers to prove that they're going to be sold, and you've got a developer with the availability of cash up front to be able to do that.
But you have the housing stock now that
We have some.
that you think you need to grow.
So in the last 4 years, roughly, we've had about 300 plus apartment units added to our market. Prior to our housing study in 2019, I don't think any of our community members, officials, or elected officials would have ever thought that apartments would have made sense in our community. That's only one element. The single dwelling, traditional style family homes is another. Unfortunately, you still come to, if the private sector was willing to take it over, the return on investment would be there. And I'm all for free enterprise. Again, if somebody wants to take a risk, there should be a return on investment. In the single dwelling home space, the numbers just don't work, almost like childcare. They just don't work. And this is a space where economic development can play, should play, because when you can see an environment where you've got public and private partnerships come together, you see some pretty cool projects come out of that. We've talked about 50 units of single dwelling property in Fremont. We've talked about 100 units in Steuben County and another site. All current projects that are considering single dwelling right now, but it's a public-private partnership.
But as the bottom line, you still need more housing.
We still do.
You still do.
We still do. And people argue, where's the population coming from? Well, I struggle saying, well, it's going to come from Allen County, DeKalb. I don't want to pick on my Indiana colleagues and partners. I can't really stop that either. but I am fortunate enough to be located in the area of the state where two of my borders are Michigan and Ohio. I could care less.
Well,
I want all those people.
I was gonna ask you about that because you are on the border of Ohio and Michigan, and what kind of impact does that have on economic development? And are you leveraging that?
We are leveraging it to an extent. I still know the colleagues across the state border that do economic development. What we look at is our commuter patterns, and we're pretty much a net zero sum. We have as many community now as we do community in. But I want to know where they're coming from. And for instance, if they're going, I'll pick on an Indiana county. If they're going to Elkhart, we have a good idea why they're going there, right? It's the RV network.
It's the RV industry.
And that's fine. But more importantly, if they're leaving Steuben County, they already live there, but if they're leaving Steuben County to go somewhere else and work, maybe Branch County, Michigan, or Williams County, Ohio, we should be able to find a job that fits them closer because they already live here. And this is the space that I think we're spending a lot more time is understanding why folks are driving that far for a job. We won't be able to change them all, but is there opportunity for us to do better by keeping some of that here?
Yeah. I mean, how competitive is that between Ohio, Michigan, and your county?
It can be pretty competitive. Indiana, we're a little bit behind in my assessment. I've done economic development in two of those states, Ohio and Indiana. Indiana is a bit behind in economic development tools. We are a lower tax state. That helps us. We are regulated in the utility side to the extent that we understand at a rate of kilowatt or at a MMBU, which is a gas molecule. We know what that cost is. Ohio and Michigan are flushed with cash for various reasons. We used to joke about it, and I used to work in that state. Ohio funds its economic development activities off of alcohol sales. So anybody who's listening, if you're from Indiana and you go to Ohio, don't buy alcohol. You're supporting economic development in Ohio, so don't do it. But in Michigan, they were one of the leading states that supported the legalization of cannabis, and that brought, no pun intended, a lot of green cash to the forefront in economic development. And we see that. I see that in deals. Look, there's one deal actually I did last year with a company based in Angola that has roots to Michigan that we encourage them to stay.
It's interesting that you're competing against alcohol and weed.
Well, I don't normally put it that way, but I mean, it's the truth. It's the reality. Again, if you look at taxation, it's pretty easy from Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio to look and see who's going to be better positioned. It's Indiana, but it's in all these other things that play into it. And at the end of the day, at the bottom of the balance sheet, when you're looking at a corporation who's wanting to make a decision, it's how much does it cost me today, and what's my ongoing cost? And if one state can mitigate both of those items more, that's where I'm going.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that was mentioned in the strategic plan that you alluded to, one of the issues was a resistance to change, and it's been my experience since I still am to some degree in this arena, that in rural counties, boy, that's a huge issue. And I'm just going to lay this one out on the table. Probably not be as diplomatic as you might be, Isaac, but the old guard in a lot of rural communities simply does not want to take risks or chances or even consider the fact that maybe there is a different way of doing things. I'm sure you've faced that.
Mm-hmm.
How have you managed to maneuver through it?
It's one of the biggest things that we face often. I have 48 elected officials within Steuben County that I work with on a regular basis, all with different backgrounds and different opinions of all ages. The lion's share of those individuals are from Steuben County originally and are of an older average age than the average age of our county, which is 44. So with that understanding, naturally, you're going to have that NIMBYism type of comments, or that just that thought process kind of matriculate through their thought process. The one thing I know in economic development, if you're not changing, you're dying. If you're not changing, you're not growing. If you're not incorporating the way that we do business today as a community, you're accepting the fact that just on a simple basis, your taxes will rise. You don't want to do anything for population growth? Understand that water and sewer rates will still grow over time. You're accepting the inevitable. Your taxes will grow. You could be on the side of, I don't like taxation. Fine. But if you don't allow change, you are accepting increased taxation. So we spend a lot of time in the education space of trying to articulate, it's not that we're trying to change everything about Steuben County. I'm not going to make it the next Fort Wayne of Indiana. I'm not going to make it the next Kalamazoo of Michigan. That's not who we are. We accept who we are. But if we don't broaden our tax base, then our constituents are agreeing to, and you as an elected official are agreeing to, a rising tax rate over time.
Has that message worked?
It started to.
It started to work.
Part of it is in the delivery. Again, I'm not suggesting massive changes. I've never been the type of economic developer to do that. I want to take what we have. I want to exploit what we have in terms of who we are. We're a manufacturing community. These are good things. I don't want to make massive changes that differ from who we are historically and culturally. But again, if we don't do things in an economic development space, then we are translating to our constituents, our communities, that, look, we're not going to add any more tax base, which means over time, we're going to have more water rates and sewer rates that are going to escalate. Your property taxes are probably going to get higher, even with Senate Bill 1. And that's just, you're going to have to accept that. And oh, by the way, you're probably entering a fixed income environment, so you'll have less income to pay for more things. If you're okay with that, then that's that NIMBYism.
Years ago, I don't remember what year it was, but it was years ago. There was an agreement that was signed. I think it was done through the partnership, which is now known as NEI, that the counties, and I think Lido's were a part of that, would not compete. I'm simplifying this a little bit.
Yes.
So my question is, where are we today on that? And has that worked? And have there been any problems in sort of that non-compete agreement?
So the non-compete really, in my opinion, is with 11 counties. It's the 11 county Lidos. That's where this agreement exists. We are the tactician. We are where the rubber meets the road. We ourselves don't have any of the assets. We don't sell the buildings. We don't make the buildings. We don't have and own the land. In some instances, we have contractual rights to those things, but in most cases, we don't own those things. We are just facilitators. So naturally, when we get into a room with 11 of us, this is actually one of the things that helped me come to the state of Indiana because Ohio didn't have it. We have a general understanding that we're all professionals. And if I have a project that I'm chasing, but you are all also chasing the project, that's okay. Our first goal should be our own county. Our second goal should be our region. Our third goal should be our state.
So if a business is interested in coming into your county, but you just don't think that you either don't have the resources really to serve this business well, you will be contacting other counties and say, hey, I have that happens.
All of us, all 11 Lidos in the region today agree that we would help to find another spot in the region for that to exist. One step further, let's say a company from, I'm going to pick on Anton in DeKalb, because this has happened multiple times. Companies looking just across the border because I have a building that's popped up. They're looking at expanding. My first phone call, once I find out that company is from DeKalb County, is to Anton to say, hey, Anton, this company XYZ is looking at exploring my area. Did you know that? Yeah, no, whatever he says. And then we'll have a course of action. Typically, interstate moves, especially so close in counties, won't receive state incentives, and they very rarely will receive local incentives because it's an interstate move, right? So it's really up then to the company to make a sound business decision. And if they still move, that's fine. That at the end of the day, it's their own business. But we as Lidos have just taken a stance that we're not going to convolute that interaction. The moment we find out it's a competitive environment between us and a colleague in the 11 counties, we're letting them know. We've done that actually across the state as well, not just inside the 11 counties. I was working on an expansion project of a local company who was looking at a project outside of my county because they couldn't fit it in my county in the southern part of the state. Now, again, one might argue, well, why are you doing that? Well, the headquarters is in my county, and if the expansion helps the headquarters in Steuben County, then I think I'm helping my current company.
I have a couple other things I want to get to. So we talked about, your county is a little unique, especially with the recreational stuff. And correct me if I'm
101
wrong.
lakes, yeah.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong here. That roughly 10% of the population are part-timers.
Ooh, I'm going to give you a better statistic, actually.
Okay, give me a better one.
23% of our homes are either vacant or second.
Okay. I missed that one.
Yes.
Given those facts, though, which I imagine are frustrating to you, A, how does that impact economic development? And B, is there anything that you can do about that, or is that just the nature of the county?
A little bit of the nature, but over COVID, we saw actually that number decline. If I go back to the vacant and secondary homes, the reason it's so high is because lake properties. These homes, that vacant secondary home category is actually combined. And most statistics, when you look at housing across any other county, for us, you have to separate that because the secondary homes are lake properties. We have very few true vacant properties in Steuben County. These are secondary homes. So over COVID, over those 4 years roughly, we saw a decrease of those secondary homes becoming now primary homes. The adverse side of that is being primary homes, you could make general assumptions when we saw it statistically that some of those individuals are also exiting the workforce. So it has a positive from a property taxation
Sure it does.
standpoint, but it doesn't support us in the workforce.
Well, it also doesn't support you in some other things, like for instance, if they're part-timers, they're not going to be pumping as much money into the economy as if they were full-time residents.
The only way we'd see that is either in property taxes, which again are relatively low considering adjacent states to us, or discretionary income.
Yeah.
And if it's already in a fixed environment and they're not doing 100% of their shopping within Steuben County, we're not seeing the same as we would have if they were employed and bringing some of that income taxation into the county.
Right. So that is one of the challenges.
It is. Yeah. It is. And we watch it pretty statistically.
Before we call it a day, the Steuben County Economic Development, I'm going to have to read this to make sure I get it right. It's a mouthful. The Steuben County Economic Development Corporation recently earned the accredited Economic Development Organization designation from the International Economic Development Council. That was a mouthful. Which makes you one of only 87 organizations worldwide who have that distinction. I don't want to put my what would it be, my dubious face on here, but because there are a lot of awards and a lot of distinctions, but how does this help economic development in your county?
So part of it is in solidifying the work that we've done. Everybody's familiar with a financial audit, and those who have been in true financial audits from a third-party outside firm understand that is a strenuous process, not only to prepare for it, but then to get through it and then to get the type of credential after
But
it.
does it, if you have a company, say, that's interested, can that actually be like a feather in the, is it really a feather in the cap that lets them know, oh, I'm dealing with some top-notch professionals
It
here?
is, and that's where I was getting to. So much like a financial audit, that's only dealing with finances. This accreditation process is dealing with everything else. How do you conduct business? What is your relationships like within your community? When you say you have good collaboration with elected officials, prove it. Don't just tell us. They looked at policies. They verified and asked individuals in our community these same questions to see how they responded based on the answers that we provided them. So it was a strenuous process. I didn't get advance notice on the questions that were being asked. We are actually the 87th, Northeast Indiana Regional Partnership's the 89th. So we've now got 2 accredited organizations in Northeast Indiana. So congratulations to them. But for us, it was the accreditation process is much like an audit. Again, I'm going to go back to that. When you have somebody outside your organization saying, you know what, this organization is trustworthy, they are fiscally responsible. That was only on the financial side. We get the same benefit on the accreditation side. Again, only 87 in the world were accredited at the point that we got accredited.
Yeah, and that's, I didn't mean to in any way
No,
denigrate it.
no.
That's remarkable. I just know that, there are a lot of distinctions out there and awards and certificates, and I just sort of wanted to get the lay of the land on
This is one, again, as an organization, it sticks with the organization. And I've talked a lot with Cameron Hospital, Trine University, and some of my other organizations that get accreditations or credentialed in something, these national associations that provide them with some sort of support. And I'm hearing the same stuff that I'm just telling you today. It's like there is a level of validation. There is a level of confidence that comes with this accreditation. And when outsiders are looking in, if they know what the ADO is, you're already setting the expectation that this organization we're going to talk to, this community we're going to talk to, has a professional acumen that we should expect, and this is what we're going to get. So the answers that they provide are going to be articulate, they're going to be on point, they're not going to waste our time.
Listen, we're about done here.
I thought we had another hour.
Oh, no, we're done. But I bet you could talk for another hour.
Maybe more.
I appreciate you being here, Isaac. Thought it was pretty fascinating, but thanks for being on the Midwest Flourish, and maybe we'll have you back at some point.
I hope so. I had a fabulous time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's a wrap on today's episode of the Midwest Flourish podcast. Want to dig deeper or get involved? Head to marketingthemidwest.com to explore how we can work together to empower your community to flourish. Let's keep the Midwest momentum going and shape the future of our region together.